Where's the camera? Right there. Hey YouTube, my name is Tristan. Welcome back to L-Space, or welcome to L-Space if you're new. I am going to be just doing a little bit of a weekly wrap-up, kind of a book chat type thing. And then I have an exciting, well, not necessarily exciting, but just a fun thing to talk about toward the end. So this week, am like this close at the time of filming this video, like this close to finishing two books, and they are Night Watch by Terry Pratchett, and this is, of course, inconveniently like in the middle of the stack of books over here, Wandering Stars by Tommy Orange. Now, I don't have a whole lot of time these days to sit down and read books, so I'm actually listening to this one. I'm listening to this through Spotify's audiobook program, which I feel a little scummy about because the amount of money that actually goes back to the authors as well as like the narrators is pennies, and it's like borderline piracy. So I feel kind of scummy about using Spotify's audiobook program, but the way that I felt better about it was because I already purchased the book. So I did purchase the book, and I'm sort of like making that the way that I feel okay about it. But, there's no ethical consumption under capitalism, so it's just, do what you can to make yourself feel good about your choices. That's what I will say on that. But anyway, so about these books, I really like this one. I believe it's so Ben, over at Ben Reads Good Books or Ben Reads Good. I'm gonna just like link his channel right here. Um, read this book for the Booker shortlist because this is on. He read this for the Booker long list. This is long listed, and I'm also trying to read the long list, but definitely not like before the shortlist or even the winner is announced. Um, I'm interested in all of the books, so I'm just gonna read all of them, even if there are ones that didn't win. Um, and I'm getting very off track here. So he was saying that he waited to read. So he like read the first part of this book, and then went back and read There by Tommy Orange, and he was wondering what the experience would be like to read this book without having read There, and I can tell you, it's great. It's fine. I don't necessarily feel like I'm missing out on anything because I also don't know what I'm missing out on. I will be going back to read There at some point, probably fairly soon, because I am finding I really do like Tommy Orange's writing. I think he's a really, really good author. And I also think this is just a fascinating story about addiction and kind of just like the presence of culture and ancestry and all of that within a person and a person's experience. And I think it's really fascinating. And it's also a very, very important book by an indigenous author. So for a lot of reasons, you should definitely try picking this one up. I think in the audiobook I'm like maybe an hour away from finishing. I'm very close to the last little bit, but I've absolutely loved every minute of this one, and I think it's very engaging. The audiobook is also quite good. It has multiple narrators for the various perspectives in this book, and they are very good at evoking the sort of tone and personality of each one of those people. But yeah, very, very, very good book, and I really, really like it. And then the other one, of course, is Night Watch by Terry Pratchett. And every October, for the last like 3 years now, maybe longer, I actually don't know, I've been reading a Terry Pratchett book. This one I'm reading because it says night in it, even though it's not really like a Halloween book necessarily. There is a zombie, so I guess you could kind of rationalize it that way. I read The Fifth Elephant because that had vampires and werewolves in it a couple Halloweens ago, and then last Halloween I read Carpe Jugulum, which is his comedic retelling of Dracula, and has the witches as the central protagonists in that one. So this is all about a revolution that takes place the glorious 25th of May, and it's really a fascinating book. So Sam Vimes is the main character of this one. This is one of the City Watch books. This is, I think, number 6 in the City Watch books, and so Sam Vimes gets thrust back into time when he was a young officer in the Night Watch, and right when the revolution and this like big uprising is about to take place, and he realizes pretty quick that he is in a pretty unique position in that space, and he has to kind of grapple with some decisions that he has to make in regards to this revolution and the people that he knows from that time. And it's just fascinating. And yeah, Terry Pratchett's writing is always really good. I don't know if I would necessarily consider this one of his funnier ones. It is funny, and there are lots of times where I mean, on the back of the page it says, Terry Pratchett seems constitutionally unable to write a page without at least a twitch of the grin muscles. And I would agree. Like, this book definitely has like one pun per page at the very least, but otherwise has some really funny other things, the cats. But yeah, I have less than 20 pages left. I had to stop reading it this morning because I had to go to work, very, very unfortunately. But I will be finishing this right after I'm done filming this. But it's just, this is a really, really fantastic book. I love Terry Pratchett, and this is certainly one of the best ones, and certainly one of the more, I guess, like, certainly one of the more political, for sure. And that's kind of all I'll say about that. But yeah, really, really good. So that's where I've kind of been reading-wise this week. Last weekend was super cool because last weekend was the Boston Book Festival, which is just as what it sounds like. It's a bunch of panels and book talks, authors coming in to talk about their most recent books. Louise Erdrich was one of the keynotes, was the fiction keynote, and there were a lot of other people. I did not get to see Louise Erdrich, but I did go to a couple other pretty good talks that I was pretty excited about. So the ones that I went to were about, oh gosh, what was the first one called? So the two that I went to were basically like talking about the spark or like the idea behind what started the book. The first one that I went to was about like speculative fiction, fantasy, and like suspense or mystery fiction, and those sorts of things. The things that inspire, what was the spark that made the author choose to write about all of those things. And I will be able to put up the books that were on that particular panel, but because I don't know if I'm going to remember the names perfectly. I'm certainly not going to remember the authors, unfortunately. But the books that were in that first panel were The Lost Boy of Santa Chionia and There is a Rio Grande in Heaven. And, of course, the one that I decided to pick up, which was The Road from Belhaven by Margot Livesy. And I was most interested in this one from the way that she talked about it, the way that she presented her work, and also just like like the little snippet that she read. And this one certainly sounds quite interesting. So this one says, the first little paragraph in the blurb: growing up in the care of her grandparents on Belhaven Farm, Lizzie Craig discovers as a small child that she can see into the future. But her gift is selective. She doesn't, for instance, see that she has an older sister who will come join the family. As her pictures foretell various incidents and accidents, in time, she begins to realize a painful truth. She may glimpse the future, but she can seldom change it. And this, she was telling us how the spark about this was this is sort of loosely based on her grandmother, who, it's just like it's part of her family's lore that her grandmother, Lizzie could see into the future in the same sort of way that is described in here. So this is her sort of reconnecting with that past. And she wrote this during the pandemic when she was really desperately trying to reconnect and get back to Scotland, because the author, Margot Livesy, is from Scotland, or like the edges of Scotland. And so she was just desperately trying to get back there in her mind. And so she wrote a book set in Scotland to get back there, at least vicariously. But yeah, this sounds really good, and it sounds really interesting. And again, she was a delightful person, a delightful author, and all of that. So I was very excited to get her book. My partner got a book from the second one. So the second one was called Call to Adventure, and it's all about kind of that spark, that inciting incident that gets their heroes onto the the talk was kind of about the hero's journey, but we're just like, what is the spark that gets your heroes, what is the inciting incident that gets your heroes from their way of life into going on a journey to then finish at the end of it with a new way of life. And I actually have all three of the books from that particular one. So the one that my partner got was In the Garden of Monsters by Crystal King, and this sounds fascinating. So it's very gothic, it's very spooky. I think there's maybe a little bit of magical realism in here. But it's about, let's crack open the spine, shall we? Or crack open the front cover. So it's Italy, 1948. And Julia Lombardi is a mystery even to herself. The beautiful model can't remember where she's from, where she's been, or how she came to live in Rome. When she receives an offer to accompany celebrated eccentric artist Salvador Dali to the Sacro Bosco, Italy's Garden of Monsters, as his muse, she's strangely compelled to accept. It could be a chance to unlock the truth about her past. And she was talking about, Crystal King, as she was talking about this and how the process of writing it was kind of coming together, she talked about having to negotiate how Salvador Dali was just a terrible person and like a literal fascist, and how she was going to like make that palatable on the page to her readers, and like obviously not associate herself, the author, with Dali's ideologies, of him being just a terrible person. And apparently she had like really neutered him in that respect, and when she sent it to her editor was kind of like, well, why do you even have Dali in here if he's not going to be Dali? And King was like, well, I mean, it doesn't really work if I take Dali out, so like, what do I do? And then the editor was like, well, you just make him worse, obviously. And so I'm assuming that's what she did. But yeah, this sounds like a very interesting book. I know that it has some very spooky elements, and there's a lot of elements in it that are based off of the rape of Persephone and that whole myth. And obviously you can see a lot of iconography on here. There's a pomegranate up here, and this looks like Persephone walking into the mouth of Erebus to go down to Hades. But yeah, very excited to read this one as well as my partner. I'm sure he's excited about that one. The other one that was there Now, admittedly, I did not buy this for myself. I bought this as a gift, but this is Bunyan and Henry, and this is sort of just like a retelling and recontextualization of Paul Bunyan and John Henry, the Steel Driving Man. And these are the way that he was talking about this, and this guy has a podcast, and I'm going to link the podcast in the. Oh, actually, I wonder if he just has it right here. Yes, he does have his podcast right here, and it's called The Thoughtful Bro. And he gets a lot of writer interviews. He just like gets writers on the show to talk about like their books, what makes them creative, what gets them into being creative, etc. And yeah, he was just like a super fun, like super nice guy. And this is his first novel, which is pretty cool. And yeah, so I got this as a gift, and I mean it's still a little bit of a ways until the gift, like I need to give it as a gift, so I have time to read it in time in the space between now and then. So I might. We'll see. But it sounds interesting. So he's just like taking these two folkloric figures and bringing them together to tell a new sort of American Odyssey type thing. Mark Cecil was talking about how he's like very interested in the hero's journey and how he really likes the hero's journey as a narrative structure. And so this book does follow that, from what he said. Burping, excuse me. But yeah, I'm pretty interested in this one. Paul Bunyan was one of my favorite stories as like a little 5 and 6-year-old for some reason. I think I just really liked Paul Bunyan and Babe. But anyway, yeah, so this will be a pretty interesting one, I think, to read. And last but certainly not least was the other one from the same panel, and that is You Only Call When You're in Trouble by Stephen McCauley. And this one is a dark comedy. The guy was hilarious. Stephen McCauley is hilarious. His just like talk was so funny. He had me practically in stitches. It's very much my style of humor. And let me read the inside cover just to give you a taste of what this one is. Is it ever okay to stop caring for others and start living for yourself? After a lifetime of taking care of his impossible but irresistible sister and his cherished niece, Tom is ready to put himself first. An architect specializing in tiny houses, he finally has an opportunity to build his masterpiece, his last shot at leaving a footprint on the dying planet. Assuming, that is, he can stick to his resolution to keep the demands of his needy family at bay. Naturally, that's when his phone rings. And this, McCauley was saying that this book was inspired by sort of his own experience with being thrust into a caregiving role, and that happens in this. I don't remember what the actual like context is of how that happens, but he's basing it off of some of his own experiences. But yeah, and I didn't know. So I've seen this cover before, right? This is a pretty recognizable cover, but I didn't realize that Stephen McCauley was a gay writer, and I had a little chat with him. I was actually really kind of impressed because he's a very successful author, right? And like a pretty big name. 2 of his books have been made into movies. And he actually like took the time in the book signing line to talk to each person, which I thought was quite lovely. And so he asked each person really if they were a writer, and I dabble, so the answer, because I do write, the answer I guess is yes. And I told him about a short story that I was sort of working on, and then he gave me a book recommendation based off of the sort of synopsis that I gave him, or I guess the elevator pitch that I gave him. And yeah, I was just really kind of charmed by the interaction and thought that it was really lovely, and thought he was a really lovely guy, when he's not doing his macabre, dark humor, which again is hilarious. And Crystal King, so they had all, of course, read each other's books, which was super fun. And Crystal King was saying that if people are wondering if he was nearly as funny as he is in person as he is on the page, she said absolutely. So I'm very much looking forward to this. I love Terry Pratchett, as we know, so I do love a good laugh as I'm reading. So I have a feeling this is going to be a hit for me. And then the little snippet that he read, of course, was great. So looking forward to this, and just really, really thankful that I had the opportunity to go and just hear these authors talk about their work. And yeah, the Boston Book Festival is really cool. I did vlog. So here is attempt number 2 at vlogging. If you haven't seen my Isabella Stewart Gardner vlog back for Framed in September, you're more than welcome to go see that. You're also more than welcome, not to go see it, but you do you, boo. But anyway, here's the vlog, and I will see you guys next time, hopefully very soon, with another video. But until then, take care and enjoy. Bye.